An Army veteran and his daughter were kicked out of a wedding by his fiancée. For years later, he walked in and everyone froze. He stood in full uniform, holding his little girl's hand, ready to witness the happiest day of his life. But instead of joy, all he saw were judgmental eyes, whispered insults, and a woman he once loved telling him he wasn't good enough to stand beside her, simply because he was a single father. She humiliated him in front of everyone, had him escorted out, and left him and his daughter broken. But what no one knew was what life had in store for him 4 years later. When he returned, the silence in that same room said everything. You won't believe what this Army veteran did, and how one decision changed everything. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. Captain Kareem Al-Mansour adjusted the collar of his formal dress uniform one last time in the rear-view mirror. His military ribbons gleamed proudly on his chest. Medals earned over 2 decades of sacrifice, deployments, and service. In the passenger seat, his 6-year-old daughter, Lena, sat quietly in a soft white dress with delicate lace sleeves, her black curls bouncing each time she turned him with wide, excited eyes. "Do I look pretty, Baba?" she asked, her voice barely louder than a whisper. He smiled and gently fixed a loose strand of her hair. "You look like a princess," he said, "and today you'll be my good luck charm." The wedding venue, a luxury hall in downtown Dubai, shimmered in the evening sun. Expensive cars lined the entrance, and guests dressed in extravagant designer attire flowed through the wide arched doors. As Kareem pulled into the valet area, he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He was about to marry Layla Al-Zahiri, a powerful Emirati businesswoman, known for her beauty and ambition. They had met 2 years earlier at a military fundraiser. She had been drawn to his discipline and principles. He had been taken in by her confidence and drive. But as they stepped through the entrance, hand in hand, everything felt off. Layla hadn't come to greet them. Instead, one of her cousins, a tall, smug man in a white thobe, approached with a forced smile. "Captain Kareem," he said with a nod. "And the child." Lena gripped his hand tighter. Kareem smiled politely, brushing off the man's tone. Inside, the hall was extravagant. Cascading flowers, crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed curtains. Every guest turned as they walked in. But the smiles weren't warm. The whispers weren't curious. They were sharp, judgmental. Kareem had felt this before. The uncomfortable glances, the subtle pity, the unspoken question. Why would a man like that bring a child here? Layla appeared a few moments later, descending the grand staircase in her wedding gown, looking like royalty. But her eyes didn't light up when she saw them. They froze. "Kareem," she said, walking down slowly. "You weren't supposed to bring her." His heart stopped. "She's my daughter. I thought we agreed." "You said she'd stay with your cousin," Layla interrupted, her voice cold. "This is not a place for a child." "She wanted to see her Baba get married," he said quietly. "She even picked out this dress for today." Lena looked up, confused, sensing the tension. Layla crossed her arms. "This is not the image I want for my wedding, Kareem. This is supposed to be elegant, powerful. You walking in like a soldier returning from the battlefield with a child in tow." "I am a soldier," he replied calmly, "and that child is my family." A crowd had begun to gather. Whispers turned into full-on murmurs. Layla's voice sharpened. "You can't force me into a life I didn't sign up for. I don't want to raise someone else's child." Kareem stepped back as if struck. "She lost her mother. I raised her alone. I thought you loved us." "I love the man," she said, "not the baggage." There was a silence that swallowed the entire hall. Lena's eyes welled with tears. Kareem crouched down and lifted her into his arms. "You want me to choose," he asked, "between this wedding and my daughter?" Layla didn't answer, but her silence screamed everything he needed to hear. The same cousin stepped forward. "Sir, I think it's best you leave." Kareem didn't argue. He simply turned around, medals glinting in the golden light, daughter in his arms, pride and heartbreak in his chest, and walked out. Guests stood motionless as the double doors closed behind him. Outside, Lena clutched his shoulder. Why did she say those things, Baba? He kissed her forehead. Because sometimes people only love what they can control. But we don't let anyone decide our worth, okay? She nodded slowly, wiping her cheeks. That night, Kareem returned to his modest apartment, removed his uniform jacket, and hung it neatly. He poured himself a glass of water and stood silently in the kitchen, staring at nothing. His life had just changed again, not in the way he had hoped, but perhaps he thought in the way it needed to. The next morning, he filed for official reassignment and took a posting in the rural outskirts near the Hajar Mountains. It paid less, came with fewer perks, but gave him the one thing that mattered most now: time with Lena. While the world whispered about the wedding scandal, Kareem didn't engage. He focused on raising his daughter with love, discipline, and kindness. She went to a local school. He drove her every morning. He made her breakfast. On weekends, they hiked together, talked about dreams, and told each other stories before bed. He had no lavish wedding photos to show, but he had peace. Still, deep inside, the memory of that hall, the faces, the laughter, the betrayal, haunted him, not because he missed Layla, but because no one had stood up for them. No one had cared. What he didn't know was that, for years later, life would give him a very different kind of stage. And this time, everyone would be watching. The morning sun filtered gently through the tall windows of Kareem's modest but cozy home in Ras Al Khaimah. The mountains framed the background like a portrait. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of peace he had fought so long to earn. Lena, now 10 years old, sat at the breakfast table, her backpack already strapped to the back of her chair, absent-mindedly dipping a piece of toast in her chai. Her uniform was crisp, her braids neat, her mind somewhere else. Big test today? Kareem asked as he sipped his own tea. Lena shrugged. Not really, but Amal said her dad's coming to school in a Ferrari. Kareem smiled, setting his cup down. And you're wondering why yours drives a dusty Nissan patrol truck. She laughed, then caught herself. I didn't mean it like that. I know, he said, reaching for her hand. One day, maybe you'll drive Ferrari. I just hope you'll still ride with your old man sometimes. She grinned and nodded, her eyes sparkling. She had her mother's eyes. Kareem hadn't spoken of her in years, not out of pain, but out of reverence. What mattered now was what they were building. Together, after dropping her off at school, Kareem drove to the local security firm he now co-owned with 2 retired comrades. What had started as part-time consulting turned into a full-blown business, providing private protection, tactical training, and logistics. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't rich, but it was his, and people had begun to notice. Just 2 months earlier, Kareem had overseen a high-risk rescue operation in Musandam, where 3 children had been trapped after a rock slide. His calm leadership and precise decision-making had saved lives. The story had gone viral after a local reporter interviewed one of the parents. The veteran who saved our children, the headline had read. And just like that, doors opened. He was invited to speak at conferences, offered contracts from UAE municipalities, even asked to sit on panels about leadership and crisis response. Still, Kareem remained grounded until one evening, after dinner, after dishes, after homework, he received a letter, an actual letter, handwritten, gold crest, the kind of envelope that screamed money, power, and formality. He almost tossed it aside, but then he saw the name embossed at the bottom, Al-Zahiri Foundation, Layla's family. He opened it slowly, expecting the worst, but what he read made him pause. It was an invitation to the wedding of Zaid Al-Zahiri, Layla's younger brother, the same smug man who had once asked, and the child? The event would be held at the same venue as Layla's wedding, the one that never happened. Kareem stared at the invitation. No message, no apology, just formality. He wasn't sure what to feel. Why invite him? Was it a trap? A joke? Or a test? He set it down. That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Why now? He whispered. The next morning, he showed the envelope to Lena. She read it quietly and looked up. Do you want to go? He shrugged. I'm not sure. What do you think? She tilted her head. Well, maybe it's time they see who we became. That struck him. Who we became. Not what they had, but what they built. 2 weeks later, they walked through the same grand doors of that luxury wedding hall. Kareem wore a tailored Navy suit. No medals, no uniform, just clean lines, sharp collar, polished shoes. Confidence. Lena walked beside him in a simple navy dress and a small clutch. She looked older, composed, graceful beyond her years. This time, the whispers were different. Guests turned and blinked. Some gasped, others froze, because they remembered the soldier, the child, the scandal. But now they stood taller, poised, radiant. A young woman with a guest list in hand approached and said, "Welcome, sir." She looked flustered. "Your presence is unexpected." Kareem smiled kindly. "I was invited. Didn't want to disappoint." As they moved through the hall, old acquaintances glanced up with recognition and uncertainty. Some nodded politely. Others avoided eye contact. Few dared speak. Then, across the room, Kareem saw her. Layla. She stood near the bride, assisting with last-minute details. Her eyes met his, and for a long moment, time seemed to freeze. There was no anger, no apology, just surprise. Layla walked toward them slowly, her heels clicking like a metronome in the silence of the ballroom. "I wasn't expecting you," she said. Kareem gave a polite nod. "But you invited me." "I didn't," she admitted. "My brother did. I didn't know until yesterday." He looked around. Quite the venue, still obsessed with gold. She smirked. "Some things never change." He nodded. "Some do." Her eyes flicked to Lena, now taller, composed, and glowing. "You've raised her well," Layla said, softening slightly. Kareem turned to his daughter. "No, we raised each other." A silence followed. Layla looked down. "I wasn't ready then." "And I wasn't asking you to be," he replied. "But you didn't have to humiliate us." She took a breath. "It was selfish." "I know." "Too late," he said, his voice calm, but not unforgivable. She looked up. "Then can you forgive me?" He thought about it for a moment, then gently smiled. "I already did." He wasn't there for revenge. He was there to close the chapter. Later that evening, as the wedding ceremony began, Kareem and Lena sat near the back. They didn't want attention. They didn't need it, but it found them anyway. The groom, Zaid, walked to the center of the room and tapped the mic. "Before we begin," he said, "I'd like to thank a special guest for being here tonight." All eyes turned. 4 years ago, our family made a mistake. A cruel, cowardly mistake. Tonight, I want to correct that. He turned to Kareem. "Captain Al-Mansour, you're the kind of man I hope to become. The kind of father I hope to be. Thank you for honoring us with your presence." The crowd clapped. Layla looked down. Kareem nodded once, not for applause, but for closure. As the ceremony continued, he leaned over to Lena and whispered, "Are you proud of us?" She smiled wide. "So proud." He exhaled, shoulders loosening for the first time in years. They had walked back into the same place that once tried to shame them. But this time they owned it, and the world finally saw the truth. You don't need permission to stand tall, only courage to walk back in. 2 weeks had passed since the wedding. Kareem returned to his quiet life in Ras Al Khaimah, back to his routine of running the security firm, packing Lena's lunchboxes and hiking on weekends. The buzz of the wedding had faded, at least on the surface, but something lingered. Calls began to come in, from people he hadn't heard from in years. Vague acquaintances, former officers, wealthy clients. Most wanted the same thing: to talk, to reconnect, to offer opportunities. Kareem declined most of them politely, but then one evening, just after sunset, his assistant Omar walked into the office holding a sleek black envelope. "It was delivered by hand," he said. "No return address. Just this." Kareem opened it slowly. Inside was a single card. "Private security consultation request. Confidential meeting. Location: Al-Zahiri Group headquarters. Executive floor. Date: Friday, 11 a.m. Requested by Layla Al-Zahiri. Kareem froze. Omar raised an eyebrow. You going? Kareem folded the card slowly. I don't know yet. He didn't want to admit it, but his heart beat just a little faster. Friday came. He wore a black suit. No tie. Clean. Understated. He didn't go to impress anyone. He went for clarity. The Al-Zahiri headquarters towered over downtown Dubai. Steel, glass, and arrogance. As he entered the lobby, he saw his reflection multiplied in the building's mirrored walls. Older now, but steady, strong. A receptionist in a headscarf led him to a private elevator, which rose directly to the top floor. Layla was waiting inside a glass-walled boardroom, alone. She stood when he entered. Thank you for coming, she said. Kareem remained standing. I didn't know what this was. Still don't. She gestured to the chair. Then let me explain. He sat. Layla took a breath and began. After the wedding, she said, my father saw the footage. Of you. Of Lena. Of how dignified you were. How you held your ground. He told me, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Kareem said nothing. She continued. He passed away a month later. Left the entire security contract for our company under review. And in his will, he named me so, but only if I completed one condition. She slid a folder toward him. Kareem opened it. Inside were schematics, maps, and logistics plans. A private security overhaul of Al-Zahiri's overseas expansion projects. Saudi, Morocco, Bahrain, she said. Oil sites, corporate hubs, embassies. It's a $200 million portfolio. And my father said, only one man can handle this. Kareem blinked. He meant you. Silence. She leaned forward. I know this is awkward, but I'm not here to fix the past. I'm here to offer future. He looked at her. Why now? Because I need someone I can trust. And you're the only one I truly regret losing. Kareem's jaw tightened. Not from anger, from the weight of the moment. Let me be clear, he said. I'm not looking to be part of your empire. I'm not here for favors or redemption. I built my peace. She nodded. Then let this be business. He hesitated, then finally asked, what's the catch? Layla looked down. The Morocco site, there have been threats. Armed groups. I need someone on the ground, someone who understands loyalty, discipline, and risk. Kareem flipped through the folder again. The numbers were staggering. The logistics massive. The danger real. Will I have full operational control? He asked. Everything, she said. I won't interfere. He looked up. And Lena? There's a school nearby. Private. Elite. Security tight. I already checked. She had done her homework. Kareem closed the folder. Give me 24 hours, he said. That night, he sat with Lena on their rooftop. The sky was clear. The stars shimmered over the mountains. Baba, she asked, if we move again, will we be okay? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed her the envelope and let her read it. When she finished, she looked up. You saved people. They trust you. He nodded. She asked the only question that mattered. Do you want to go back into that world? He exhaled. Only if I can still be your father first. She smiled. Then do it. The next morning, Kareem called Layla and said 2 words. I'm in. The next few weeks moved like a storm. Kareem flew to Morocco with a small elite team. The compound outside Casablanca was impressive but vulnerable, surrounded by underdeveloped terrain, spotty infrastructure, and corruption at the local level. Kareem began restructuring immediately. He replaced the entire night watch team, installed biometric access points, trained the executive staff in emergency protocols, met with local officials and military leaders. He didn't just secure the compound. He commanded it. Word spread fast. The Arab veteran who turned a target into a fortress. Reporters asked for interviews. He declined. But trouble was coming. One evening, just after midnight, Kareem received a call from the front gate security. Sir, we intercepted chatter. Possible breach attempt. Armed group, 3 kilometers north. Moving fast. Kareem was already dressed. His team was in motion before the threat got within sight. Using infrared drones, he watched them, 6 masked men in desert gear, moving with tactical precision. They weren't amateurs. He ordered blackout protocol. No gunfire unless fired upon. No panic, just precision. The intruders reached the outer fence. Triggered motion sensors. Kareem waited, and then one of them raised a rifle. But before he could aim, Kareem's sniper dropped him with a non-lethal shot to the leg. Chaos broke out. 2 others ran. The rest surrendered. Within 12 minutes, the breach was neutralized. No bloodshed, no damage, no media, just calm. The next morning, Layla arrived by chopper. She stepped into the control center and saw the footage. "You saved my project," she whispered. Kareem turned from the monitors. "No, we protected it." She stared at him. For the first time in years, she looked at him not as someone beneath her, but as someone she couldn't replace. And maybe someone she never should have let go. That night, as Kareem stood by the compound's helipad watching the desert glow under the moonlight, Layla approached him with something in her hand. A photo. Him and Lena at the wedding. The second wedding. "I keep this in my office now," she said. He looked at it quietly. "Why?" he asked. "Because it reminds me that power means nothing if you don't respect those who walk away from it." He didn't respond, but something was shifting. In him, in her, in the path that once led to ruin. And for the first time in years, it was starting to feel like fate hadn't closed the book, only turned the page. The next several weeks blurred into a steady rhythm of discipline, long days, and silent glances. Kareem had transformed the Morocco facility into one of the most secure sites in North Africa. His leadership had earned the respect of engineers, guards, and diplomats alike. Contractors saluted him when he passed. Local families began calling him the Wall. Lena was thriving, too. The private school Layla had arranged was a quiet haven. Lena made friends, joined a writing club, and even started learning French. Her mornings began with stories and ended with walks through the orange groves behind their villa. Kareem finally had what he'd spent years chasing: stability. But with stability came confusion. It started with short conversations, then working dinners, then long drives through the outskirts of Casablanca to inspect security points. Alone with Layla, there was no talk of the past anymore. It hung in the air like perfume, faint, unforgettable but unspoken. In its place was something new: familiarity, trust, and something else neither dared name. Late one night, after a long inspection, they sat inside the command center with the city lights blinking on the horizon. Layla took off her blazer, revealing a softer side beneath the sharp CO armor. She rolled up her sleeves, laughed more easily, leaned in without realizing it. At one point, she asked quietly, "Do you still hate me?" Kareem looked at her for a long moment. "I never did." She blinked. "Not even after what I said to Lena that day." "I was hurt," he said. "But hate? No. I just didn't recognize you anymore." She nodded slowly. "And now?" He hesitated. "You seem less afraid to feel," he finally said. "Less afraid to be real." Layla looked away. "I've spent most of my life trying to prove I could run with the men in my family, that I was more than a pretty face or a last name. Somewhere along the way, I forgot who I was." Kareem turned toward her. "Then maybe it's time to remember." The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was charged, warm, but neither made a move, because both knew what had happened before, and neither wanted to break what was finally working. Still, something had shifted, and the next day it all came crashing down. It was a Wednesday. Dry heat blanketed the region. Kareem was conducting a final walkthrough before sending a security report to the central board in Abu Dhabi. As he reached the west perimeter, he noticed one of the camera feeds had gone dark. Unusual. He called it in. "Camera 12 offline. Any routine checks?" "Negative, sir," the control room replied. "No maintenance scheduled until next week." He ordered a drone scan of the sector. 3 minutes later, the feed came in. 6 figures in the scrubland, dressed as agricultural workers. But one of them was armed, a long-range scoped rifle slung low under a tarp. Kareem's blood ran cold. He had seen this formation before. Not rebels, not amateurs, mercenaries. Lockdown protocol, he barked. Silent alert. No media. Evac non-essential personnel. His team moved like clockwork. Within minutes, internal systems went dark. Emergency shutters descended. Employees were guided to safe zones. Lena's school was contacted, and a private armored vehicle rerouted to extract her quietly. But then a second drone captured something that stopped him in his tracks. One of the men was known. Jalal Ben Fad, ex-Special Forces, expelled from the Royal Guard for orchestrating private coups for oil conglomerates. Vanished 3 years earlier. No one had seen him since. Until now. What is he doing here? Omar, Kareem's second-in-command, asked. Kareem didn't answer. He was already putting the pieces together. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message, and it was meant for Layla. He rushed to the top floor of the compound. Layla was in her office, reading emails. You need to come with me. Now! She stood instantly. What happened? No time. They're not local threats. They're professionals. She grabbed her tablet and followed. Kareem led her to a hidden corridor behind the executive wing. It was narrow, industrial, rarely used. Where's Lena? She asked as they moved. On her way to the safe house. They descended 2 flights before entering a steel-walled panic room disguised as a storage facility. Inside were monitors, tactical gear, rations, enough for 72 hours if needed. Layla sat down, visibly shaken. Why now? She whispered. Because someone paid for it, Kareem replied. And that someone didn't want this operation to succeed. You're too visible, too powerful. Her hands trembled. He noticed. Layla, he said, softer now. Breathe. She looked up. You're still protecting me. After everything. He nodded. It's who I am. Outside, the attack was contained. Kareem's snipers fired warning shots, forcing the mercenaries to retreat into the hills. None made it past the second fence. No casualties. No breaches. But the message had been sent. This was war. 2 days later, the dust settled. Kareem debriefed the entire team. Extra guards were assigned. Diplomatic channels opened with Moroccan authorities. Interpol was contacted about Ben Fad. And yet, there was one problem Kareem hadn't solved. His heart. That night, after the compound had gone quiet, Layla appeared at his door. She wasn't in a suit. She wore a simple ivory blouse, her hair loose, eyes tired. I can't sleep, she said. He gestured her in. They sat, said nothing, until finally she broke the silence. I lied back then, she said. Kareem looked at her. About what? About not wanting your daughter. About not loving what you had. I was scared. Of the responsibility. Of the way you made me feel. He swallowed. You told me I was baggage. I was cruel because I was broken. Kareem stood, walked toward the window. I don't know if I can let you close again, he admitted. Not after what it cost me. I'm not asking for a second chance, she whispered. I'm asking for one real moment. To show you I've changed. He turned. She stood too, closing the distance between them. This time there was no silence, only a kiss. Soft, real, undeniably human. They didn't promise forever. They didn't erase the past. But in that moment, they rewrote what the future could be. Outside, the desert wind howled like it always had. But inside, something finally felt still. And for the first time since the day Kareem had walked out of that wedding, he allowed himself to hope. Kareem never let his guard down completely, even in peace. Years of military training had taught him that calm was often the eye of the storm, and something in his instincts had begun to tingle again. It started as whispers. Omar came into Kareem's office one morning, pale and tense. I need to show you something, he said. Kareem followed him into the surveillance room, where footage from external drone patrols was being rewound and enhanced. Omar froze the screen. Camera 17, Eastern Perimeter, night before last. Kareem leaned in. There was a single figure crouched at the edge of the outer fence, face covered. No identification. Jump ahead to 147, Omar said. The figure reached into a duffel bag and pulled out a small device, thin, metallic, barely bigger than a credit card. Remote beacon, Omar muttered, military grade, used for GPS tagging. Almost impossible to detect unless you're scanning for it. Kareem narrowed his eyes. This wasn't amateurs. No, and that's not the worst part. Omar switched feeds to a loading dock inside the compound. Timestamp. The next morning. Same day the tag was planted. Kareem watched a short clip. A logistics vehicle left a secure bay without inspection. Authorization was approved under Layla's name. Kareem stared at the screen. That can't be right. I thought it was a glitch too, but I checked the logs 3 times. She granted access personally. Voice and fingerprint. His mind raced. Could it have been a deep fake? Or had someone coerced her? Or was there something he didn't know? He replayed her words in his head. You're the only one I truly regret losing. That kiss, that moment, could have been a lie? No, not her. And yet, pull every access record from the past 2 weeks, Kareem ordered. Cross-reference movement logs. I want to know who came in and who left, and what they were carrying. Omar hesitated. And if it leads back to her? Kareem didn't answer. He didn't have one. That evening, Kareem sat alone in his quarters, flipping through the security folder from Layla's original proposal. Page 19. Morocco Compound Assets. A list of imported equipment for diplomatic satellite uplinks. He'd never approved those installations. He flipped back. There it was. Bypass authorized via executive override, El Al-Zahiri. His hands clenched the file. It wasn't just a security contract. This had been a setup. He confronted her at sunrise. Layla was already awake, pacing the balcony of her private villa. Why didn't you tell me about the satellite uplinks? Kareem asked without pleasantries. She turned, eyes wide. What are you talking about? You signed off on high-level uplink equipment being installed inside the compound. Military grade. Untraceable. You used your name to push it through customs. That wasn't part of the original security protocol. She hesitated. I didn't know what it really was. My cousin Ziad told me it was for secure comms with our Dubai headquarters. Ziad doesn't have clearance, Kareem snapped. And he didn't sign the export manifest. You did. Her silence was everything. Kareem stepped closer. What have you brought into my compound, Layla? She looked away. It wasn't supposed to be like this. His voice rose, sharper now. Are you spying for someone? Or being used by someone? Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know it would get this far. I thought I could keep it separate. That you'd never find out. Find out what? Layla gripped the railing. My family made a deal, years ago, with a consortium of foreign investors. They promised funding, connections, expansion, but the price was data. Surveillance. Using our infrastructure to collect information. Kareem's heart dropped. So they planted you as bait. They used me. They didn't expect you to say yes, she said, her voice cracking. And when you did, I begged them to cancel the plan. But they refused. They said if I pulled out, they'd destroy everything my father built, everything I'd inherited. And so you chose power, he said, his voice flat, over integrity, over Lena, over me. No, she cried. I chose survival. I chose not losing everything again. He stared at her like she was a stranger, and maybe she was. Kareem resigned that night. He informed his team, packed his things, contacted the embassy for safe extraction protocols. He would not be part of this. Not again. He didn't confront Ziad, didn't tell Lena. He simply prepared to disappear, quietly, honor intact. But before he could leave, the compound was surrounded. Black SUVs, armed men, no flags, no insignias, just silence. Omar burst into his quarters. We're under siege. Someone's trying to take Layla, maybe eliminate her. Kareem didn't hesitate, because no matter what she'd done, she was still Lena's godmother, still a human being, still someone he once loved, and he wasn't going to let her die. The next 20 minutes were chaos. Kareem led a rapid extraction unit through the basement corridors. He found Layla trapped in her panic room, hyperventilating. "Come on," he said, yanking the steel door open. "We're getting out." "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "No," he agreed, "but you deserve to survive." Gunfire erupted outside. Kareem moved fast, guiding her through secondary exits, past generators, through a gravel path that led to the rear helipad. Omar was waiting with the pilot. "We have 5 minutes," he said. As they climbed aboard, Kareem turned once more to Layla. "I'm getting Lena. Then we're gone. Forever." Layla grabbed his hand. "Will I ever see you again?" He didn't answer, because the man he used to be had already died, and what rose from the ashes now was something harder, sharper, but still human. The chopper blades cut through the Moroccan dawn like a heartbeat, steady and loud. Kareem sat in silence, Layla across from him. Her knees pulled to her chest. Tears streaked across her cheeks. She hadn't said a word since they lifted off. She didn't need to. The truth was already between them, louder than any confession. Beneath them, the Al-Zahiri compound shrank into the desert, surrounded by chaos, betrayal, and the ghosts of decisions made long before Kareem's boots ever touched that soil. Lena was safe. He had sent a separate armored vehicle to extract her the moment he learned of the breach. She was now en route to a diplomatic safe house with Omar. Kareem had made sure she would never again be caught in someone else's war. But now he had a choice, and this time no battlefield could make it for him. They landed at a private runway north of Tangier. Kareem had coordinated the rendezvous with a contact in the Jordanian Intelligence Corps. He stepped off the helicopter, helped Layla down, and was met by 3 agents. "We'll take it from here," the lead agent said, nodding respectfully. Kareem didn't reply. He handed over the encrypted drive Omar had recovered just hours earlier. Evidence of the satellite data Relay Layla's family had approved. It was everything. Enough to bring down multiple corporations. Enough to end careers. And enough to end Layla's, too. Layla looked at him one last time. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, voice barely audible above the wind. "But I want you to know I meant every word that night. I didn't lie about the way I felt." He studied her face, the same face that once turned away from him in shame and now bowed in regret. "I know," he said. And with that, he walked away. He didn't turn back. He couldn't, because some chapters don't deserve to be reopened. 3 months later, Kareem sat on the balcony of a rented home in the hills outside Amman, Jordan. Lena played in the garden below, chasing a butterfly with 2 neighbor kids. Her laughter, full, bright, untouched, was the only sound that mattered. He sipped his tea slowly, watching the sky shift from golden to pink. Omar approached with a small envelope. "From the ministry," he said. "And one more thing." Kareem opened the envelope. Inside was a letter of commendation from the Jordanian government, praising his actions in Morocco, his defense of civilians, and his role in dismantling an illegal data ring operating in the Middle East. There was also a private note. It wasn't signed, but he recognized the handwriting. "I lost everything, but you saved my life. If there's anything left of me, it's only because of you. If we never meet again, let this letter be my way of saying I was wrong. About love, about courage, about what matters. L." Kareem folded the paper carefully and slid it into the inner pocket of his jacket. He didn't cry, but he closed his eyes and breathed. 6 months later, Kareem launched Mansour Strategies, a private security and leadership consulting firm aimed at empowering former soldiers and training vulnerable communities to protect themselves from modern-day exploitation. He hired only veterans, many with scars deeper than his own. He lectured in Abu Dhabi, spoke at the UN in Geneva, sat in silence at Lena's school recitals, made dinner most nights, burned toast some mornings, laughed, smiled more. He never remarried, not because he couldn't, but because what he needed most was no longer something he searched for in others. It was something he had finally built inside himself. On the first anniversary of the Morocco incident, he and Lena took a trip to Tangier, just the 2 of them. They stayed at a small inn near the water, ate tagine in a street market, climbed the hill to the old lighthouse, and there, under the wind and the stars. Lena looked up and asked, "Baba, do you still miss her?" He thought for a long moment. "I don't miss the woman she was," he said. "But I miss the hope I had for who we could have been." She nodded. "Do you think she changed?" Kareem took a deep breath. "Yes," he said, "and so did I." She smiled. "Then I think that's enough." Before they left Tangier, Kareem returned to the exact helipad where everything had fallen apart. He stood alone, just as he had when Layla was taken away in handcuffs. The desert wind still carried the same weight. But this time, he wasn't carrying it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter. Then he burned it, not out of anger, but to free himself from what had once held him down. The past was not a prison. It was a teacher, and he had learned. As they boarded the plane back to Amman, Lena turned to him with a smile. "I want to write about you for my class project," she said. "They asked us to write about someone brave." Kareem laughed. "Brave? I burn toast every other day." She grinned. "Not because you fight, but because you don't let fighting change who you are." He turned to the window, silent, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. Sometimes victory isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of a little girl still smiling, long after the battle is over. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who believes in second chances, and help us bring more inspiring stories like this to the world. Because sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do. And sometimes it leads you right back to who you were always meant to be.